The moment Ibiki said begin, the exam hall transformed. It wasn't the desks or the papers. Those were just wood and ink. It was the air. The shift was immediate, like the room inhaled and decided it would not let anyone breathe comfortably until it was satisfied. Pens scratched across paper in frantic bursts. Some people froze, staring at the first question like it had insulted their bloodline. Others started writing with the confidence of practiced liars. Proctors drifted through the aisles, boots quiet, eyes everywhere. Naruto could feel them the way he felt weather, not by looking, but by sensing pressure. He flipped the exam sheet over and scanned it once, fast. Question 1 wasn't too hard, but he didn't grin. He didn't celebrate. He simply picked up his pencil and wrote, calm and steady, as if the room wasn't full of killers waiting to smell weakness. His nights, those long nights without sleep, had finally paid him back in a currency he could spend here. He'd studied tactics until he could see patterns in chaos. He'd worked through logic puzzles, political structures, historical conflicts, and shinobi doctrine. He'd read until the words stopped being information and started being tools. So he answered the first question cleanly, then the second. By the third, Naruto noticed the first cracks forming around the room. Not on the paper, on people. Shoulders tightening, breaths shortening, eyes darting sideways for help they weren't supposed to ask for. He kept writing. Question 4 tried to trick him with phrasing, one of those questions that punished people who rushed. Naruto slowed down, reread it twice, and smiled internally when he caught the trap. He corrected course and wrote the answer anyway. Question 5 was about supply chain logistics in hostile terrain, something most genin didn't care about until they were starving on a mission. Naruto did. He'd spend hours with sealing scrolls and field manuals, thinking about what a team could carry, what they could store, what they could lose, and how quickly a simple escort could become a funeral march if you were careless. He wrote the answer. Question 6 was harder. It dug into infiltration protocols and the kind of counterintelligence most academy teachers only mentioned in passing. Naruto paused, pencil hovering, eyes narrowing. He could feel Sakura beside him writing without hesitation. Of course she was. Sakura's mind was a clean blade when it came to theory. Naruto's wasn't as clean. Naruto's was stubborn. He replayed what he'd read. He pictured a village gate, a patrol rotation, the way an outsider would test the edges of a system. Then he wrote, carefully, and moved on. 6 questions solved. 6 questions, solid. Naruto's breath stayed even, but he felt the next shift the way you felt a cliff drop under your foot. Question 7 stared up at him like a dare. It wasn't just harder. It was different, less knowledge, and more specialized experience. The kind of question written by someone who expected you to either have done this before or to be clever enough to steal the answer without being seen. Naruto tried anyway. He broke it down, simplified it, applied logic. Halfway through, he realized he was losing time. Not just because he was slow, because the question was built to eat minutes like a hungry animal. Even if he could figure it out, he'd spend too long on it and get trapped. And the questions after it would only get worse. It annoyed him. All this studying, and he couldn't solve all of them in time. He knew Sakura was probably on the final question by now. He decided he needed to crack down on studying even more after this exam. He was inspired and even admired the third Hokage, who was considered one of the smartest minds in the village. Naruto glanced at the clock without moving his head too obviously. Time bled away. He looked down the row and saw what the exam really was. Not a written test, but a pressure cooker. People were cheating. Subtle glances, mirror tricks, tiny movements. The proctors weren't stopping it. They were measuring how it was done. Naruto didn't like cheating. Not because it was immoral, shinobi weren't priests, but because it was messy. It invited mistakes. Mistakes got you caught, but wasting time was also a mistake. Naruto exhaled through his nose once and let his mind go quiet. Cheating was necessary, and it was likely part of the test. Cheating was information gathering under surveillance. A ninja didn't win by being fair. A ninja won by bringing back the mission alive. So Naruto made a choice. He didn't rush. He didn't start flailing his eyes around like an amateur. He raised his hand calmly, posture straight, expression neutral. A proctor in a flak vest, Chunin, by the way he moved, stopped near his desk. The man's gaze was suspicious before Naruto even spoke. Everyone who asked to leave during this exam probably had a reason. Naruto didn't look guilty. He didn't look scared. He looked mildly annoyed, like his body had dared to inconvenience him. Bathroom, Naruto said quietly. The proctor's eyes narrowed. He leaned closer, as if expecting Naruto to crack and confess something stupid. Ibiki's voice carried from the front without turning his head. one at a time. Escort him. The proctor clicked his tongue softly, then gestured with 2 fingers. Move. Naruto stood slowly, leaving his paper face down like he was supposed to. He kept his hands visible. He walked without haste. Every instinct in him wanted to move fast, to get it done, to get back before time escaped him. But speed invited attention, and attention invited eyes. The proctor stayed half a step behind, close enough to grab Naruto if he ran, far enough to not look like he was nervous. Naruto filed that away. Confident, they left the exam hall through a side door into a quieter corridor. The noise dulled behind them, the hall's tension replaced by a colder, emptier silence. The walls here smelled like old paint and disinfectant. Somewhere farther down the corridor, a fan rattled like a tired insect. Naruto kept walking, gaze forward. The proctor's footsteps were measured and light, trained. Not a brute. Good. It meant he'd be predictable. They turned a corner. Another. Naruto kept track without looking, building a mental map. He'd done this kind of thing at night, slipping through empty academy halls when he was younger. The layout hadn't changed much. The bathroom was at the end of the corridor, plain door, plain sign, plain trap. The proctor pushed the door open with his shoulder and stepped in first, scanning the room quickly. Naruto followed, hands still visible, expression still calm. The tiled floor was damp near the sinks. The air smelled faintly of soap and stale water. The proctor jerked his chin toward a stall. Go. Naruto walked into the stall and closed the door partway, not fully. Fully closed would look suspicious. Partway closed meant the proctor could still watch. It also meant Naruto could control exactly what the proctor could see. Naruto stood there for a heartbeat, listening. The proctor's stance shifted, weight settling onto one leg. A subtle sigh. That tiny relaxation was all Naruto needed. Naruto moved. He didn't explode into motion like in combat training. That would be loud. He didn't throw a punch. That would risk a struggle. Instead, he stepped out of the stall like he was about to complain, then twisted, a smooth pivot that put him behind the proctor in one controlled motion. The proctor's head started to turn, reflex sharp. Naruto's hand already had a kunai handle in it, not the blade. He drove it into the pressure point behind the proctor's jaw and followed with a second strike to the side of the neck, precise and fast. The proctor's body stiffened, eyes widening in surprise. Then his legs buckled like someone had cut strings. Naruto caught him before he hit the floor. He lowered the man down carefully, because a loud collapse would echo. Naruto's heart hammered once, then steadied. He'd done it. Now came the risky part. Naruto moved fast but quiet, checking the proctor's pulse like he'd practiced in medical exercises. Strong. Alive. Just unconscious. He dragged him into the stall and propped him awkwardly against the wall, then pulled cord and cloth from his pouch. Basic ninja line, quick knots. The man was bound around the wrists and ankles, enough to stop him from running even if he woke up groggy. Then Naruto formed the hand seal and whispered, "Shadow clone." 2 copies of him popped into existence in a faint puff, each one solid, each one looking exactly like him. Naruto didn't make a dozen. He didn't need chaos. He needed control. He pointed to the bound proctor. "You," he said to the first clone, voice low, "stay. If he wakes up, keep him quiet. Don't hurt him. Just keep him here until the test ends. And don't dispel unless you have to." The clone nodded once, serious. Naruto turned to the second clone. "You're coming with me." The clone's hands formed the transformation sign, and its body shifted smoothly, height changing, posture thickening, hair darkening, flak vest appearing with the right folds and stitching. A perfect copy of the Invigilator stood there, down to the tired crease at the brow. Naruto felt a small spark of pride. His transformation control had gotten better. Sharper, cleaner. He pointed toward the door. "Walk like him. Breathe like him. Don't talk much. If someone asks, you grunt." The disguised clone gave a faint, irritated grunt on cue. Naruto almost smiled, but he didn't. There wasn't time. They moved. Naruto exited the bathroom first. Posture normal, face slightly annoyed as if he'd just been inconvenienced by biology. The disguised clone followed, one hand resting near its pouch in that casual, authoritative way Chunin had. They walked back through the corridor, turning corners without hesitation. Naruto's memory and the clone's proctor confidence combined into something believable. When they reached the exam hall door, Naruto paused for a fraction of a second, letting his breathing settle. Then he pushed in. The exam hall hit him like heat. Sound rushed back, scratching pencils, shifting chairs, the low hum of stress. Eyes flicked toward him briefly, then away. A few faces watched longer, curious. Naruto kept his expression bored. The disguised clone stepped in behind him with the same bored authority. Ibiki didn't look up. He didn't need to. He knew exactly when someone entered. Naruto walked to his seat, sat down, flipped his paper back over, and put his pencil on the page with a steady hand. No one screamed. No one pointed. No one noticed. Good. The disguised clone moved away like a real proctor would, slowly patrolling. Its eyes scanned desks. It passed behind genin who were sweating and shaking and looked like they were about to break. And Naruto started writing again. Question 7. He didn't solve it outright. He didn't have time to be noble. Instead, he watched the clone's movement with peripheral focus while pretending to concentrate. He wrote partial logic, enough to look like real work, enough to cover his tracks. The clone drifted behind one particular desk near the front where a calm-looking shinobi from another village was writing with almost insulting confidence. The disguised clone leaned slightly as if inspecting. In that half-second, it saw the answers. Naruto didn't need every detail. He needed the core. The clone continued on, casual, and as it passed Naruto's row, it paused behind him like it was checking his posture. A very quiet whisper slipped down, almost too low to hear under the room's noise. 7. Second option. 8. Formula breaks on third condition. 9. The decoy is the supply wagon. Naruto didn't react. His pencil didn't even stop moving, but his mind locked the information in immediately, like a seal snapping shut. He adjusted his writing. Corrected. Completed. Question 7 answered. Question 8 was still a monster, even with the hint. Naruto filled in the logic and wrote the solution, steady. Not rushed, not sloppy. Question 9. He applied the clue and worked it out, finishing the full answer with seconds to spare before his time margin became dangerous. He glanced at the clock again, more subtly this time. He wasn't going to have time to relax. The disguised clone continued its patrol for another minute, gathering more insurance answers, then drifted back toward the walls and stood where proctors stood. Naruto kept writing, building the last pieces, and just as his pencil finished the final line of question 9, Ibiki's voice dropped like an axe. Time. The hall froze in a collective flinch. Pencil stopped. Hands froze over paper. A few people looked like they'd been caught mid-breath. Naruto set his pencil down slowly and kept his face neutral. His heart was still steady, but his nerves buzzed under his skin like static. He'd cheated. He'd succeeded. But this test wasn't over. Not even close. Ibiki stood at the front, posture unchanged, eyes sweeping the room like he was counting prey. You have one final question, he said, voice calm, almost bored. The 10th. The room seemed to tighten again, as if the walls leaned inward. Ibiki didn't hand out a paper. He didn't need to. The question wasn't on the sheet. This question is different, he continued. You will have a choice. Naruto's jaw tightened slightly. He knew this part. He'd read about it, heard rumors, seen it in academy texts that talked about the exams in vague, ominous language. Ibiki's voice remained flat. If you choose not to answer, you fail. Your entire team fails. Sakura's breath caught beside Naruto. Ibiki didn't look at her. He looked over the entire room. And if you choose to answer, his eyes narrowed, and you get it wrong. A ripple of fear passed through the hall. Naruto felt it as a change in posture across dozens of bodies, shoulders lifting, throats tightening. You will fail, Ibiki said simply, and you will be barred from taking the Chunin exams again. A murmur started, angry and terrified. Ibiki lifted one hand, and the sound died. Naruto's eyes flicked to Sasuke for a fraction of a second. Sasuke's face was stone, but Naruto could see the faint tension in his brow. Sasuke was proud, but Sasuke wasn't stupid. A permanent ban was no joke. It could slow him down. It could trap him. It could delay revenge. Sakura's fingers curled on the desk. Kiba looked like he wanted to bark something angry, but his throat didn't produce sound. Hinata sat still, eyes down, but Naruto could see the tightness in her shoulders. Ibiki leaned forward slightly. Now, he said, if you wish to give up, raise your hand. Silence. Then a hand rose somewhere near the back. A genin stood, face pale, and forced words out. I quit. Ibiki nodded once. Your team is disqualified. Leave. The genin's teammates looked like they'd been slapped. One swore under their breath, but they stood anyway, shoulders sagging, and left. Another hand rose. Another. Then more. The room began to bleed people. Each time someone stood and quit, their teammates died a little inside. Some shouted in anger. Some looked numb. Some cried silently. Naruto watched it all without moving, his face calm, but his mind sharp. This wasn't about knowledge. This was about the weight of responsibility, about whether you would carry your team's future on your back and still stand. Sakura's breathing steadied beside him. Naruto didn't look at her, but he could feel her resolve hardening. She'd been through waves too. She'd seen death. She'd seen what quitting could cost. Sasuke didn't move at all. Sasuke was never going to raise his hand. Naruto's fingers tapped once on the desk, barely noticeable. He thought of Haku's face, of the moment his mask fell away. He thought of the way fear could twist your spine into surrender. He thought of the village, of people who still looked at him with suspicion, and of the few who had started to look at him with something else. He thought of his dream, heavy and impossible, and still his. A voice in his head whispered that this could be a trap, that the ban might not be real, that the 10th question might be a bluff. But it didn't matter, bluff or not. The choice would reveal who you were. Ibiki's gaze swept again. You have 30 seconds, he said. Decide. A hand rose near the front. A leaf genin with trembling fingers. They looked around like they were begging someone to save them from their own fear. Then they stood and quit. Their teammates looked like they wanted to strangle them, but they filed out anyway. Time ticked. Naruto felt the room's pressure concentrate, like a store tightening into a single point. People were either going to break or become something harder. And then, predictably, Naruto's body moved before his mouth did. He stood, not explosively, not dramatically, just up. His chair scraped softly. A dozen heads turned toward him. Some looked irritated, thinking he was about to quit and drag his team down. Some looked curious. Ibiki's eyes narrowed, and the proctors subtly shifted, ready for anything. Naruto looked forward, posture straight, hands relaxed at his sides. He didn't shout. His voice was calm, quiet, but clear enough to cut through the hall like a clean blade. Is this supposed to scare us into quitting? Naruto asked, head tilting slightly. Because if it is, it's working. You've already made a lot of people leave. A few genin flinched, like being called out stung. Ibiki's expression didn't change. State your decision, he said, voice hard. Naruto exhaled once. My decision is I'm not quitting. A ripple moved through the room. Not loud, more like a collective shift, as if people leaned forward without realizing. Naruto continued, gaze steady. I don't care if there's a ban. I don't care if you tell me I can never take the exams again. If I quit here, I'm already finished. His voice didn't rise into a scream. It didn't need to. It carried something heavier than volume. Certainty. Naruto's eyes moved briefly across the rookies, across other villages, across faces that looked desperate and furious and afraid, and quoted one of the scrolls he read near the beginning of his training as a ninja. A shinobi can't only move forward when it's safe. If you only take steps when you're guaranteed to win, you'll never grow strong enough to protect anything. He paused, then added, softer but sharper, and if your dream is real, if it means something, then fear doesn't get to decide for you. Sakura's posture straightened beside him. Naruto didn't look, but he felt it. He felt the other rookies looking at him as if he'd changed. Well, they weren't wrong. He was changing every day. He would learn new things, have new experiences, and made sure to etch as much as he could into his heart. Naruto looked back to Ibiki. So ask your question. Ibiki stared at him for a long moment, eyes unreadable. Then, slowly, Ibiki's mouth twitched, not into a smile, but into something that looked like grim approval. He lifted his hand. Those who remain. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Pass. The room went still for one heartbeat, like no one believed it. Then shock exploded outward in waves. People blinking, exhaling, shoulders collapsing with relief, some slumping forward as if their bones had been holding them upright purely through terror. Naruto sat down slowly, expression still calm, but inside his chest something loosened. He'd expected a trap. He'd expected pain. Instead, he'd found the true test. Not knowledge, but guts. Ibiki continued, voice louder now. The 10th question was whether you would risk everything to continue. Chunin must make decisions under pressure. They must carry risk, and they must not fold just because consequences are frightening. He looked across the room again. Those who quit are not weak, he said. But they are not ready. Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly. Not weak, but not ready. That was honest. Ibiki turned slightly toward his proctors. Collect the papers. Genin began to breathe again, some laughing shakily, some trembling, some looking angry that they'd nearly been broken for nothing. Naruto leaned back in his chair for the first time since the exam. He passed. Then, a sudden crash from above. Wood splintered. Tiles exploded downward. Dust rained into the hall in a dramatic shower like the ceiling itself had decided it was done being intact. A figure dropped through the hole with wild confidence, landing on the desk at the front as if gravity was optional. A woman with spiky purple hair and a grin that looked like trouble carved into human form. She slammed a kunai down and leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "All right, you maggots," she shouted, voice bright and vicious. "Congratulations on passing the first exam. I'm Enko Mitarashi." The room snapped into attention, half startled, half confused. Enko's grin widened like she was enjoying the chaos. "Because now we move on to the second exam. And that's where the fun starts." Ibiki's face creased into irritation. "You're early, and use the door next time," he said flatly. Enko stuck her tongue out at him like a child. "Don't be so boring. Besides, there are so many left." "Did you get soft, Ibiki?" Naruto watched her with a careful kind of interest. She didn't feel like Kakashi. She didn't feel like Kurenai. She felt like a storm that laughed while it tore roofs apart. And judging by the way the room reacted to her presence, a lot of people were about to regret thinking the written test was the hard part. Enko leaned forward again, gaze sweeping the survivors with hungry amusement. "Welcome," she said, "to hell. By the time I'm done with you, there will be less than half of you." A smile crept across Enko's face, sharp as a kunai edge, and she leaned forward like she was about to share a secret. "But only after we've changed places." The candidates filed out with her, some excited, most uneasy, a few already looking like they regretted waking up that morning. When the doors shut behind them, the room felt emptier than it should have. Ibiki Marino didn't rush. He never rushed. He simply began collecting exam papers in the same unhurried way he'd spoken the rules, like this was all routine, like nerves were just another resource to drain and measure. He stopped at Naruto Uzumaki's desk. At first glance, the sheet looked ordinary. Handwriting a little aggressive, pencil strokes firm, no eraser marks scattered like panic. Then Ibiki's eyes narrowed. All 9 questions were answered. Every answer was correct. That alone was rare. But what caught him wasn't the score. It was the method. The work shown wasn't the ones the decoys with the answers had. Naruto seemed to have had incomplete logic in places, then clean deductions that bridged gaps the way an interrogator bridged lies, forcing the truth through pressure points rather than brute force. Some parts looked like he'd gathered a thread of information from the decoys and then built the rest himself, using angles Ibiki hadn't expected from a genin, not even from many chunin. Ibiki stared at the name at the top, Naruto Uzumaki. Ibiki exhaled through his nose. "You're the one who spoke up too." His gaze drifted across the other papers as if he weren't thinking about Naruto at all, but the thought had already lodged in his mind like a hook. Interesting. Outside, the sky was bright enough to feel insulting. The air carried the smell of summer and leaves, but the group moving through Konoha didn't have the energy to appreciate it. They followed Enko, because there wasn't really another choice, through winding paths and out past training grounds until the scenery changed into something wrong. The trees ahead were too dense, too tall, their canopies knotted together like fingers clasped in prayer. The fence surrounding the area wasn't just a fence. It was a warning. Heavy posts, thick wire, warning signs nailed in place like somebody had tried to convince themselves words could stop death. Enko stopped, spun around, and beamed like she'd brought them to a festival. "Welcome to the stage for the second test," she announced. "Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death." Her smile made it sound like a joke. The forest made it sound like a threat. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, low, uneasy. Naruto didn't join them. He stood with Team 7, hands in his pockets, eyes studying the tree line the way he'd study a battlefield. Sasuke looked calm, but Naruto could see the tension sitting under his skin like a coiled wire. Sakura stood straighter than she used to, but her eyes were sharper too, less starstruck, more awake. Anko's gaze swept the survivors, enjoying the fear like it was perfume. "Why is it called the Forest of Death?" She tilted her head. "Well, you'll find that out soon." She pulled out a thick stack of papers and slapped them into her palm. "Before we start, you're all signing waivers." A few people flinched. Enko laughed. Yeah, I know. Boring. But listen, there will be injuries in this one." She paused long enough to let the word hang. "And there might be deaths." That one hit harder. Even the ones trying to act tough didn't manage to hide the swallow in their throats. Enko began handing out the forms with casual efficiency. "I'll explain the exam, and then you can sign. Teams will check in at the booth behind me after." Naruto took the waiver and skimmed it quickly. The wording was blunt. No poetic nonsense. It basically said, You're choosing this. Don't blame us when you bleed. Sakura's brow furrowed as she read hers, lips pressed tight. Sasuke barely looked at the paper before signing, like he'd already signed it the day his clan died. Naruto signed too, then folded the paper neatly and handed it back. His hand didn't shake, but something inside him tightened anyway. He'd seen death on the bridge. He'd felt what it did to you. He wasn't naive anymore. When the last form was collected, Anko hopped up onto the railing near the gates and raised both arms like a ringmaster. "All right," she shouted. "Here's how this works. Each team gets one scroll, either heaven or earth." Assistants began distributing scrolls. The sealed tubes looked harmless until you remembered what they represented. A key, a prize, a target painted on your back. "There are 44 gates," Anko continued, nodding toward the entrances around the perimeter. "The forest is about 10 kilometers across. In the center is a tower. Your job is simple. Get the scroll you don't have and reach the tower before time runs out." Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Naruto could almost hear the math in his head. 10 kilometers was nothing, unless you were being hunted. Anko lifted 2 fingers. "Time limit, 5 days. 120 hours. The crowd murmured again, louder this time. 5 days trapped in a deadly forest with other teams encouraged to steal, injure, and kill? It wasn't an exam. It was a controlled war. Anko's grin widened. "Now, disqualifications." She ticked them off like she was counting ingredients. 1. You don't reach the tower before time is up. 2. You lose the scroll you started with. 3. You lose a teammate. If someone dies, you're out. Sakura's throat bobbed as she swallowed, and Naruto felt his shoulders tense. Not because he doubted himself, because he knew what that rule meant. It meant every fight had a second battlefield underneath it. Your team's survival. "And 4, Anko said, voice almost sing-song. You must not open the scroll until you reach the tower." A few people frowned. Naruto frowned too. A rule like that meant only one thing. The scrolls were booby-trapped. Anko's eyes sparkled. "If you open them early, you're going to have a very bad time." Shikamaru, somewhere behind Naruto, muttered, "What a drag." Like the entire forest was personally inconveniencing him. Naruto glanced back at the rookies as the explanation ended. There were 9 of them taking the exam. Team 7, Team 8, Team 10. They'd trained. They'd improved. But this wasn't a sparring match. It wasn't a D-rank. It was 5 days of mistakes waiting to become permanent. "Good luck," Naruto said quietly, not trying to sound like a hero. Just honest. Hinata's eyes brightened slightly. She gave him a small smile that felt out of place in a place like this. "Good luck too, Naruto." His chest warmed in a way he didn't fully understand. "Be careful, Hinata," he replied, giving her a thumbs up. "And don't hold back." Hinata nodded quickly, cheeks tinting, and then she turned back to her team. Naruto exhaled and faced his own. Team 7 checked in, received their scroll, the Heaven Scroll, and moved toward their assigned gate. Gate 12. The number was stenciled above the metal bars like it mattered. Like death cared what door you used. They stood before it, the forest looming on the other side. Sasuke flexed his fingers once. Sakura adjusted her pouch straps. Naruto rolled his shoulders under his jacket, the weight on his limbs reminding him he was still training even now. Anko's voice rang out across the perimeter like a starting bell. "Begin." The gates opened. Team 7 stepped into the forest of death, and the world changed. The air inside was heavier, damp, thick with the smell of rot and living green. Sunlight barely reached the ground, trapped in the tangled canopy above. The trees were enormous, trunks like towers, roots like serpents. Every sound carried wrong, distant animal calls that didn't sound like animals, the drip of water that could have been footsteps if you weren't careful. Naruto didn't speak right away. He listened. His senses had improved over the past months, still not as good as he wanted, but enough that he could feel the forest breathing. Larger signatures too. Something heavy moving far away. And something else. Human chakra, scattered like sparks. Teams. Sasuke moved first, not waiting for orders. "We head inward," he said, voice low. "Get the other scroll. Avoid fights unless we have an advantage." Sakura nodded, and Naruto gave a short hum of agreement. It was strange. He didn't argue. He didn't boast. He simply accepted the plan because it was sensible. Sasuke's eyes flicked to him briefly, as if searching for the usual obnoxious resistance. When it didn't come, Sasuke looked away, almost annoyed by the lack of friction. They moved through the trees, fast but controlled, staying off the ground when it made sense, using branches as highways. Naruto watched Sakura's footing. She was careful, not clumsy, and that mattered. He watched Sasuke's posture too. Tight, predatory, always ready to snap. Naruto felt himself slipping into mission mode. This wasn't training. This was survival. A creature was nearby, he could sense it. The question was it dangerous? Then a rustle, right side low. Naruto's head was already looking there, kunai sliding into his palm without panic. It wasn't an attacker, just a large snake sliding through brush, tongue flicking. Sakura stiffened anyway. Naruto raised his hand slightly, palm down, a silent signal. Don't panic. The snake moved on. They continued. They hadn't gone far when the first real trap sprang, not mechanical, not explosive. A shifting pressure in the air. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Something about the environment felt wrong. Too still. Too clean. Then the rain began. Not normal rain. It fell too straight, too evenly. The sound too consistent. It didn't move with the wind. It wasn't weather. It was an illusion dressed up as weather, meant to distract, to mask movement, to make you doubt your senses. Sakura noticed too. Her eyes sharpened, and she leaned in slightly. Jinjutsu, she murmured. Sasuke didn't respond. He simply shifted his stance, ready to strike. Naruto didn't waste time analyzing. He dipped his fingers into his pouch and flicked a small pinch of powder into the rain. The droplets disturbed the particles in a pattern that didn't match real water. That confirmed it. Someone was watching them. A voice drifted through the artificial rain, mocking. Konoha Genin, huh? You're at the wrong end of this forest. 3 figures stepped out of the misted brush, headbands marked with the hidden rain symbol. Their eyes were cold, posture confident in the way people were confident when they believed the prey had already lost. Naruto counted them instantly. 3. Full team. Good. At least it was even. Sasuke's Sharingan flickered to life, 2 Tomo in each eye spinning like they were eager to eat movement. Sakura shifted back, positioning herself slightly behind the 2 boys, hands ready for kunai and wires. She wasn't dead weight anymore, but she was still the most vulnerable if this turned ugly fast. The Rain Ninja leader smirked. Hand over your scroll, and we might let you crawl out alive. Naruto didn't reply. He stepped forward half a pace, not aggressive, just ready. Sasuke moved at the same time. The 2 of them didn't even need to talk. The months of training and fighting together had carved a silent rhythm between them. Naruto pressured. Sasuke punished openings. Sakura supported. The Rain Ninja lunged first. The leader went for Sasuke, fast, direct. Kunai aimed for the throat. Sasuke met him with a sharp parry, metal ringing, and twisted into a counter kick aimed at the ribs. The Rain Ninja slid back, surprised at the speed, and Naruto exploited that surprise. Naruto flicked a shuriken, not at the leader's body, but at his wrist. The Rain Ninja jerked away, the blade grazing his sleeve. It wasn't a kill shot. It didn't need to be. It forced his hand to move, forced his guard to shift. Sakura's wire snapped through the air a heartbeat later, threading the space where the leader's arm had been. He had to retreat another step to avoid being caught. The other 2 Rain Ninja moved in together, trying to overwhelm Naruto. One came high with a downward slash, the other low with a sweeping cut meant to take his legs. Naruto didn't retreat. He dropped his center of gravity, letting the high slash skim over his shoulder while he pivoted on his heel. His footwork was cleaner now, less rush, more flow. He caught the low attacker's wrist with his left hand and twisted, using the man's momentum to pull him forward. At the same time, Naruto's right palm pressed briefly against the attacker's forearm. A small pulse of chakra, precise, controlled, ran into the contact point. The movement seal didn't lock the man for long. It didn't need to. For a fraction of a second, the Rain Ninja's arm seized as if his own muscles forgot how to obey. Naruto used that fraction. He drove a knee into the man's stomach and shoved him backward into his teammate's path. The 2 Rain Ninja collided, their timing breaking, and Sakura's shuriken whistled through the rain illusion and bit into the ground at their feet, forcing them to hop and stumble rather than regain balance. Sasuke capitalized on his own opening. His eyes tracked the leader's micro-movements, and he slipped inside a wide slash, elbowing the man's shoulder and driving a kunai but into his jaw. The leader staggered, then tried to retreat into the rain for cover. Naruto's hand flashed up. A wind chakra-imbued kunai snapped into his grip and he threw it, not at the leader's spine, but just past him. The blade didn't cut flesh. It cut air. The kunai's wind edge hissed, slicing through the Jinjutsu field like someone tore a curtain. The rain illusion wavered, stuttered, and shattered, revealing the forest's true, dim light again. The rain team froze for a beat, startled that their cover had been broken so cleanly. That beat was fatal. Sasuke's hands blurred through seals. Fire style, fire vortex, jutsu. The fire roared outward in a wide cone, lighting the forest in sudden orange. The rain ninjas scattered in panic. One dove behind a trunk, another leapt upward, and the leader threw himself sideways, barely escaping the brunt of it. But Sakura was already moving, wires glinting. She jerked her line tight, catching the one who'd leapt. The wire snared his ankle midair, yanking him down hard. He hit the ground with a grunt, breath knocked out. Naruto didn't hesitate. He slammed forward, the kunai handle cracking into the man's temple with a controlled strike. The rain ninja went limp. One down. The leader screamed something to his teammate, trying to regroup, but Sasuke was already on him again, Sharingan tracking everything. Their blades clashed in rapid bursts, sparks flicking off steel. Naruto turned to the remaining rain ninja, the one behind the trunk. The man tried to form seals, likely a water technique to counter Sasuke's fire. Naruto didn't give him time. He formed a single hand sign and created one shadow clone. Only one, keeping his chakra economy tight. The clone sprinted wide, drawing the rain ninja's attention, while Naruto moved in a tighter arc, silent. The rain ninja snapped a kunai toward the clone, only to slice through smoke. Naruto's real body was already behind him, a palm to the shoulder, a pulse of chakra into the seal formula. The rain ninja stiffened, again, only for a heartbeat, but Naruto used it to sweep his legs out. The man hit the ground, and Naruto pinned him with a kunai to the throat, voice low and cold. Stop! The rain ninja froze, eyes wide. Naruto didn't kill him. He knocked him out with the kunai handle, hard and clean, and stepped back. 2 down. That left the leader, still fighting Sasuke, but now he was panicking. His team was gone in seconds. He wasn't facing weak rookies like he thought. He was facing something sharper. Sasuke feinted a high strike, then drove low, aiming for the leader's thigh. The leader blocked, but his stance opened and his arms trembled from Sasuke's strike. Sakura's wire flashed in, wrapping around the leader's wrist. He tried to cut it. Naruto's shuriken clipped his knife hand, forcing his fingers to loosen. Sasuke's kunai slammed into the leader's throat guard, stopping a fraction short of skin. Sasuke's eyes were flat, voice colder than the forest air. Drop it! The leader's weapon fell. For a moment, all 3 of them simply stood there, breathing steady, the scent of burnt leaves still hanging from Sasuke's fire. Naruto looked down at the rain ninja's pouch and pulled out their scroll tube. The symbol on the cap told him enough. It was the one they needed. Earth. Sakura's shoulders sagged in quiet relief. Sasuke's gaze sharpened, as if annoyed that it had been too easy. Or perhaps annoyed because it wasn't over yet, because something inside him always insisted the next enemy would be worse. Naruto tucked the earth scroll away carefully, sealing it into one of his storage scrolls to keep it safer than a simple pouch. We have got to move, he said, voice tinged with urgency. Who knows when the next team will jump out at them? Now, Sasuke nodded at Naruto. He agreed with him. They needed to get to the center as fast as they could now, scrolls in hand. Sakura looked at Naruto for a heartbeat longer than normal, like she was still adjusting to the fact that Naruto didn't just charge and yell anymore. He planned. He executed. They left the unconscious rain ninja behind, bound and out of the way. Naruto didn't feel proud about it. He didn't feel guilty either. They'd threatened his team. They'd chosen their outcome. They moved deeper. The forest grew darker as they went, the canopy thickening overhead. The sounds changed too. More insects, fewer birds. The kind of environment that felt like it had been designed for ambushes. Naruto sent a single clone ahead once, far enough to scout, close enough not to risk a full fight alone. He kept his own presence quiet, breathing controlled, chakra tucked in. The clone returned minutes later, dissolving at Naruto's signal. Information hit his mind in a clean, immediate wave. A clearing ahead, a stream, 2 teams moving on parallel routes, 1 injured. No immediate threat. But something else too, an odd sensation like the forest itself had shifted. Naruto didn't like it. He didn't tell Sasuke that. Sasuke would interpret it as weakness. Sakura would interpret it as danger and panic. Naruto kept it internal, filed it away, and stayed sharp. They reached a wide tree branch overlooking a shallow river. The water flowed slow, dark, and the air smelled faintly metallic. Sorry guys, I need a leak, Naruto said with a bashful smile. Although he could sense a chakra signature below them, so he wasn't actually going anywhere. Sasuke quickly called him back. Wait, We need a code for getting separated. Naruto understood the meaning of this immediately. He knew there was something underground too. Had he seen something with his Sharingan? Sasuke gave the code, and Naruto left. Just far enough that the hidden ninja wouldn't be suspicious. Like clockwork, Sasuke waited, and Naruto returned. What's the code? Sasuke said, taking out a kunai. Sakura following suit. A grin appeared on Naruto's face. It's a large amount of loud enemies is the friend of the shinobi. Hide and remain silent. A shinobi must understand the proper time, when the enemy is tired and ill-prepared. Sakura felt relieved, but Sasuke launched a kunai at Naruto anyways. Sasuke, he got the code right. Sakura shouted. It might have been the first time she got annoyed at Sasuke. So you can dodge my surprise attack. Not bad. Sakura, I felt this guy's presence from underground, and I confirmed it with my Sharingan. Sasuke replied calmly, his Sharingan now burning at full power. Quite prepared, aren't we? The creepy grass ninja said as he transformed into his original appearance. A pale woman with snake-like eyes. Sasuke was on edge. This one was different. He could feel she was stronger. Much stronger. With Naruto, the moment he sensed the grass ninja make her move, he tried to run back, but was stopped by a gigantic snake. Naruto tried to run around it, but it was hellbent on keeping him here. Was it a summon? The grass ninja's one? If so, he had to kill it. As quickly as possible, he decided to give up conserving chakra. If the grass ninja could summon something like this, he had to help as soon as possible. The snake attacked him, and Naruto let it consume him. Then he used the shadow clone jutsu to blow the snake's stomach to pieces. Meanwhile, Sasuke and Sakura were facing the grass ninja. All of a sudden, their bodies were cut to pieces. They both fell to the floor, but when they looked at their bodies, they were fine. Sakura, cover me. We need to work together to beat her, Sasuke said through gritted teeth. Okay. Sakura stood up. If Sasuke needed her help, she would do her best. Sorry guys, I need a leak, Naruto said with a bashful grin, scratching the back of his head like this was the most normal thing in the world. The moment the words left his mouth, his focus sharpened. He could feel it, faint, steady, tucked away beneath the branch they stood on. A chakra signature, low and deliberate, like someone had pressed themselves into the earth and decided to become part of it. Sasuke's head turned slightly, Sharingan flickering as his gaze slid over Naruto's face. Wait, Naruto stopped mid-step. We need a code, Sasuke said, voice low but hard. If we get separated, we don't let anyone walk back up to us wearing your face. Sakura stiffened. A code? Naruto understood instantly. Sasuke had felt it too. Maybe he'd even seen it with his Sharingan. Movement under the soil, chakra shifting like a mole digging through roots. Naruto nodded once. Yeah, that's smart. They chose it quickly, because there wasn't time for a long debate. Sasuke rattled off the phrase in a clipped voice, something Naruto had said during training once, half joking and half serious. Naruto repeated it back to lock it into Sakura's mind. Then he took a breath, slid his hands into his pockets, and walked off the branch as if he really was just going to relieve himself. He didn't go far, just far enough that whoever was hiding wouldn't suspect he was circling the trap instead of stepping into it. Naruto dropped to a lower bow, then another, moving quietly. He could still feel the signature below, steady, patient, not moving yet. Whoever it was, they weren't rushing. They were waiting for Team 7 to split, to fray, to expose a throat. Naruto's jaw tightened. Not today. He eased to the ground, landing on damp soil with barely a sound. The forest around him felt thicker at ground level, more smells, more decay, more hiding places. He crouched and pressed his palm lightly to the earth. The chakra was close, and then it moved, not like a person stepping forward, like something massive shifting beneath the surface. Naruto's instincts screamed a half-second before the ground bulged. He sprang backward, and a gigantic snake burst up from the soil like the forest itself had opened its mouth. The creature was obscene. Its scales glistened darkly under filtered light, its body thick as a tree trunk, its head wider than Naruto's torso. The stench of it hit him, wet reptile, blood, and something sharp that reminded him of old medicine. Its mouth opened. Naruto saw the fangs. He saw the throat behind them, and he realized, with a cold twist in his gut, that this wasn't a normal animal. This thing had chakra in it, a summon. He cursed to himself. The snake lunged, mouth yawning wide enough to swallow him whole. Naruto could have dodged. He was fast enough. His reactions were drilled sharp by months of night training. But he didn't dodge. He let it take him. The world became darkness and crushing muscle. Hot breath, slick walls, pressure like a vice. His shoulders scraped against ridged flesh as the snake's throat convulsed, dragging him down. Naruto exhaled once, slow. Now, he formed a seal in the black. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A second body exploded into existence beside him, cramped and furious. Both of them squeezed in the snake's living tunnel. Move, Naruto hissed. The clone didn't argue. It slammed its shoulder forward, and the two of them shoved deeper, forcing their way into the snake's stomach as it clenched around them. The stomach was worse. Acid stung at Naruto's clothes. The air was humid and foul, full of half-digested rot. The walls pulsed with muscle, trying to crush them, trying to drown them in digestive sludge. Naruto's clone grinned with the same viciousness. Naruto didn't allow himself to show on his own face anymore. Blow it, Naruto nodded. The clone took a breath and released itself, not dispelling gently, but bursting outward with intent. A shadow clone didn't just vanish. It collapsed into chakra, and chakra could hit like a hammer if you forced it. The inside of the snake erupted. The walls spasmed. The creature's entire body convulsed above ground. Naruto felt the stomach muscles tear as the clone's chakra burst ripped through tissue like a detonated seal tag. He didn't wait. Naruto kicked off the slick flesh, forcing his way back up the throat as the snake thrashed. He used chakra in his feet like a grip, climbing the inside of a living tunnel that tried to swallow him again. Light flashed ahead, and Naruto punched out through torn flesh, rolling onto wet soil as the snake collapsed behind him in a heavy, dying sprawl. It wasn't clean. It wasn't graceful, but it was fast. Naruto spat once, wiped acid slime off his jaw with the back of his hand, and forced his breathing to steady. The forest went quiet for a heartbeat. Then Naruto's attention snapped back to his team. Sasuke. Sakura. The chakra signature underground wasn't gone, but it was with his teammates. Naruto moved. He sprinted through the undergrowth in a low, fast line, using trunks and roots as cover. His feet barely made noise. He vaulted over a fallen log and landed on a branch, then used it like a highway back toward the river line where he'd left Team 7. As he moved, his mind flickered through possibilities. If it's one ninja, why hide underground? If it's a team, where are the others? If it's a trap, what's the bait? Naruto's stomach tightened further. He heard fighting in the distance. He needed to get there quickly. Up on the branch where Naruto had left them, Sasuke stood still as stone. Sakura kept her kunai out, posture tight. They waited. Then Naruto appeared, walking casually along the branch like he hadn't just been eaten alive. What's the code? Sasuke asked immediately, kunai already in his hand. Sakura mirrored him, drawing steel, eyes darting over Naruto's face as if she could spot a lie in the shape of his grin. A smile crept over Naruto's mouth. Not his usual loud one. This was smaller, quieter, almost knowing. It's, Naruto began, then recited the code cleanly. A large amount of loud enemies is the friend of the shinobi. Hide and remain silent. A shinobi must understand the proper time, when the enemy is tired and ill-prepared. Sakura exhaled in relief. See? It's him. But Sasuke didn't relax. He threw the kunai anyway. The blade snapped forward, aimed not at Naruto's heart, but at his shoulder, fast enough to force instinct, not conversation. Sakura's eyes widened. Sasuke. He got it right. Naruto's eyes widened too. He twisted, dodging the kunai by a hair's breadth. It should have looked impressive. Instead, it looked wrong. Too smooth. Too practiced in a way Naruto didn't move. Naruto's dodges were efficient now. Yes. This dodge was like watching a snake bend around a blade. Naruto did not move like that. Sasuke's expression didn't change. His Sharingan was spinning at full burn now, eyes dissecting every micro-flinch and breath. So you dodged my surprise attack. Not bad, Sasuke said evenly, voice aimed at Sakura as much as the figure in front of them. I felt someone's presence underground. Confirmed it with my Sharingan. The Naruto smiled wider. Quite prepared, aren't we? The figure said. Then smoke billowed. The blonde hair dissolved into darkness. The orange symbol vanished. The face stretched, reshaped. Skin paled until it looked almost translucent in the forest light. When the smoke cleared, a figure stood where Naruto had been. Tall and narrow, movements too graceful, eyes a sickly yellow that felt reptilian. The face was beautiful in the way venomous, horrifying things could be beautiful, and the smile was worse than Zabuza's ever was. Sakura's breath hitched. Sasuke's grip on his kunai tightened until his knuckles whitened. The grass headband on the figure's forehead caught the light, scratched but intact. A shinobi from the hidden grass. Except no, this wasn't a normal genin. You didn't need experience to feel that. This person no. This thing's presence pressed against them like weight. It wasn't just strong, It was predatory. Sasuke's instincts screamed danger. Sakura's instincts screamed at him to run. The grass ninja tilted their head, eyes shining. So you noticed. How cute. It wasn't chakra flaring like a jutsu. It wasn't a jinjutsu either, not exactly. It was killing intent, raw, concentrated, deliberate. Sakura blinked, and suddenly she was falling apart. Her body split open in her mind, cut into pieces. Blood, so much blood, her arms slipping away from her shoulders, her stomach opening like a butchered fish. She hit the branch and couldn't move. Sasuke's vision twisted too. He saw his own throat ripped out. He saw himself choking on blood, his fingers grasping at nothing. For a heartbeat, fear took him, not the childish fear of being hit. The deep, animal terror of knowing a predator had chosen you. Then Sasuke's eyes hardened. He raised his kunai and stabbed himself through the thigh. Pain slammed through his body like a bell. Real pain. Anchor pain. The hallucination fractured. Sasuke's breath came out ragged, but his mind cleared enough to move. Sakura's face was pale, lips trembling. She was still trapped halfway in fear, eyes wide. Sakura, Sasuke snapped, voice like a whip. Focus. It's killing intent, not a jinjutsu. You can't let it lock you. Sakura swallowed hard. She forced her breath to steady, forced her fingers to tighten around her kunai. Her nails bit into her skin, forcing her mind to become slightly less clouded. Sasuke's Sharingan spun, pupils cutting like blades. Cover me, he said through gritted teeth. We need to fight together. Sakura nodded once, fast, stiff. Okay, the grass ninja watched all this like it was entertainment. Interesting, they murmured. You're still standing. Sasuke moved first. He didn't charge blindly. He stepped in at an angle, kunai leading, aiming for a quick strike meant to test distance and timing. The grass ninja didn't dodge like a genin. They flowed aside like smoke, and Sasuke's blade cut empty air. Sakura's support came instantly. A shuriken flashed past Sasuke's shoulder toward the grass ninja's flank, meant to force a retreat, to create space. The grass ninja caught it between two fingers without looking. Sakura's eyes widened in horror. Sasuke didn't hesitate. He pivoted, using the moment the grass ninja's hand was occupied. His heel snapped up toward their jaw, fast enough that even if the kick was blocked, it would push them off balance. The grass ninja leaned back, not stepping away, just bending, spine folding like something inhuman. Sasuke's foot missed by a breath. The grass ninja's hand flicked, and a kunai appeared like it had spawned from their sleeve. Sakura reacted on instinct. She threw her own kunai, not at the ninja's chest, but at the hand holding the weapon, trying to disrupt the throw. Metal clanged. The grass ninja's kunai deflected mid-flight, skimming Sasuke's cheek instead of piercing his throat. A thin line of blood appeared. Sasuke's eyes narrowed further, Sharingan memorizing every detail. The speed, the angle, the timing. The grass ninja smiled. You two work well, for children. Sakura's anger flared through her fear. She lunged, trying to drive her kunai into their ribs. The grass ninja simply stepped forward and past her, body turning just enough that Sakura's strike slipped along cloth rather than flesh. Then the grass ninja's elbow struck Sakura's back, not hard enough to break, but hard enough to steal her breath and drop her to one knee. Sasuke lunged in to punish the opening, kunai thrust aimed at the throat. The grass ninja raised one hand. Two fingers caught Sasuke's kunai like it was nothing. The impact traveled up Sasuke's arm in a harsh jolt. Sasuke twisted instantly, trying to wrench free and turn it into a trap. The grass ninja didn't let go. They pulled. Sasuke was yanked forward, balance broken, and the grass ninja's knee came up fast toward his stomach. Sasuke twisted sideways at the last possible moment, taking the knee in the hip instead of the gut, then rolled away, landing in a crouch, breathing heavier. Sakura forced herself upright again. Her hands shook, but she didn't back down. Sasuke glanced at her quickly. Weapons, wires, anything. Force her to react. Sakura nodded, gritting her teeth. She pulled wire from her pouch, looped it around a kunai ring, and flicked it low toward the grass ninja's ankle, intending to snare and yank, or at least force them to jump. The grass ninja hopped lightly over the wire, toes barely leaving the branch. Sasuke used that moment. He surged forward, kunai high, then dropped low, aiming for a slash across the thigh. A crippling cut would slow even a monster if it landed. The grass ninja's foot snapped out. A kick, precise and brutal, struck Sasuke's wrist. His kunai flew out of his hand, spinning away into the trees. Sasuke's eyes widened a fraction, less from pain, more from shock at how cleanly they'd disarmed him. Sakura threw another shuriken, faster now, trying to pin the grass ninja's sleeve to bark. The grass ninja turned their head, eyes lazy, and the shuriken missed by a hair as if the air itself had moved it. Then they spoke again, voice soft. Let's stop playing. Sasuke felt it in the tone. The shift from amusement to intent. Sakura felt it too. Her breath caught. The grass ninja's smile widened, and their eyes gleamed like polished venom. Let's fight, they said, with our lives on the line. The pressure in the air deepened. Even the forest seemed to go quieter, as if the trees were holding their breath. Sasuke's Sharingan spun faster. He pulled another kunai. His stance lowered, tighter, ready to explode. Sakura's fingers tightened on wire, her eyes narrower now. She was scared, but fear wasn't controlling her anymore. It was feeding her focus. The grass ninja moved. She didn't dash like a person. She appeared. Sakura saw a blur, and then pain exploded in her arm. A kunai had embedded into her forearm, deep, sharp, the metal biting between bone and tendon. She let out a strangled sound and stumbled, blood spilling down her wrist. Sasuke's eyes widened. Sakura, the grass ninja, didn't even look at Sasuke. She moved toward Sakura as if she were already dead. Sakura tried to pull the kunai free, but her fingers slipped on her own blood. Her arm trembled violently. Her body wouldn't respond fast enough. The grass ninja raised their hand, two fingers poised like they were about to pluck something delicate. Sasuke lunged, too far, too slow. The grass ninja's hand shifted to meet him, and Sasuke knew, in that split second, that if he committed fully, he'd die. Sakura's eyes widened in terror, and then the branch above them cracked. A shadow dropped from the canopy like the forest had spat out a weapon. Naruto. He came down with an axe kick, so heavy it felt like the air shattered. His heel slammed into the grass ninja's shoulder and drove her straight down off the branch. They hit the ground below with a violent crunch, earth spraying outward in a small crater. Naruto landed a heartbeat later, knees bending to absorb impact. But the strike had been amplified, chakra reinforcement in his leg, and then that concentrated burst at the point of contact. A controlled explosion packed into a single hit. He didn't give the grass ninja time to breathe. Naruto's head snapped to Sakura. He saw the kunai in her arm and the blood, and something hard flashed in his eyes. Sakura, he said, voice low. Move. He scooped her up, one arm under her back, one under her legs, careful of the injured arm, and leapt back towards Sasuke's position on the ground, using the trees as cover. Sasuke's gaze flicked across Naruto, then Sakura, then back to the crater where the grass ninja lay. Naruto set Sakura down behind a thick trunk. Stay behind cover, he ordered, softer now. Your support. Sakura's lips trembled in anger and pain. I can still. No. Naruto cut in, not cruel, just firm. You can still help. But you're bleeding, and you've got one working arm. So help smart. Sasuke stepped closer, eyes sharp. You were taken by the snake. Naruto's mouth twitched. So he did sense it, yeah? I handled it. Sasuke's eyes narrowed slightly, like he wanted to ask how. But the forest didn't allow time for pride. The grass ninja rose from the crater. Slowly, dust fell from their shoulders. Their head rolled once, like a neck loosening. Their smile didn't fade. It widened, delighted. Well, they murmured. So the blonde one has teeth.